YouTube, I think.
Oh snap! It's happening.
It's happening. It's happening. Yeah. We got a live stream on YouTube.
All right.
That's great. What's up, YouTube people?
Hello, YouTube.
How exciting. And yeah, I can see you on YouTube. That's great.
No, yeah, and I can see it in my Zoom where it says, on custom live streaming service, copy streaming link here. Oh, I'll do that. I'll go share it.
Okay, we're live streaming on Twitter. What's up, Twitter people?
Hello,
Oh
Twitter.
my God, when the gears start working.
Really?
Yeah. We got YouTube, Twitter, and I think we should be getting Facebook, but I don't see Facebook yet. Welcome everybody to the live stream. Just hang in here with us for a couple minutes. We're maybe 30 seconds. We're gonna see if we can get Facebook working, and then we'll start the show. We got some really exciting drama on Steam Land today, and yeah, we're gonna talk about it. So Facebook is not really catching it for some reason. So I think we might have to just go with this. Save. No, can't do that. All right. Anyway, let's just get the show going. How are you doing, Kenny? Kenny Parulitano.
Doing well, brother. Doing. It's been a wild couple weeks, but I'm doing really well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So, for those that are not aware, there's been some crazy drama. Tron bought out Steemit, quote unquote, and is merging Steemit, and everybody's confused about what that means. We're gonna talk all about that. What before we begin, like how long ago did you realize that this was coming, Kenny?
So there started to be some rumor, some chatter. I want to say like late December, early January is when, maybe mid-December at the earliest, was kind of when there started to be some rumors that Tron and Steemit, the company, were going to be collaborating in some way. And then it was February 12th or 13th. It's always hard to tell because it's happening in China and I'm on the west coast of the U. We're all in different time zones and stuff. But the 12th or 13th is when they announced the Tron Foundation has bought Steemit Incorporated.
That's amazing. So blockchain bought a blockchain, sort of, but not really.
Right, but yeah, and that's the kind of the way they talk about it. They, in all the first announcements and everything, it was always the Steemit blockchain. We purchased Steemit and their proprietary blockchain. It's like, well, it's open source for one thing, and it's not theirs.
Mm-hmm. All right. So before we get into any further on this, for people that don't know you, what's your story, Kenny? What's your story with Steemit in particular? I know you as somebody that's, you created a lot of Steemit content. I've known you for a couple of years. You're one of my favorite people. Kenny is awesome. But tell us a little bit about your Steemit story.
Well, yeah. So I've been basically living out of a backpack on the road since June of 2015, and about 1 year after that, I was coming back into the world from the Rainbow Gathering, being away from the internet for like 4 weeks. And our mutual friend, Kurt Robinson, hit me up and said, hey, I put up our last interview that we did on Steam, and it made like $90. How can I send that to you? And I was like, wait, what now? You just made $90 off us sitting on a couch talking for an hour? What is this? So I went and checked out Steemit. Was the only website at the time to access the Steem blockchain. But yeah, it opened so many doors in my life. I enjoyed writing, but I never really put out content. And as soon as I got on Steem, I put up a post that I put a lot of time into. I wrote it for like most of a day and put it out, and it did really well. And then for the next few weeks, it was multiple posts a day, and it's come and gone. But I've been on the platform almost 4 years now. I've published about 400 articles and videos. I've just been involved in as many ways as I can. I try to learn more about the tech. I've built up and worked with and support a variety of the communities on the platform. And it's been basically my whole source of financial, stability for 4 years now has just been my blog over there. And I've really enjoyed the whole different approach to, it's different from any other social media, and it's different from any other blockchain.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people that actually got into crypto because of Steemit. Even my girlfriend Anastasia, she got into Bitcoin at all because of Steemit, because she's a writer, and then suddenly this website's paying like hundreds of dollars for an article. So
Yep.
professional writers would just start jumping in. And I mean, I've created a bunch of content on Steemit. I've never been really like hardcore about it. I was just like, hey, they're paying me for my articles, I'll take it. But and there's a very active community there, and I've gotten to see kind of like the internal politics of Steemit every once in a while. One of the things you can do is you can upvote, obviously, comments and post and stuff, and you vote with how many coins you have. You have like a weight, like a proof of stake weight, but then you can also downvote, right? And so at scale, eventually you start seeing like really heavy political kind of moves. It's like, oh, this guy is definitely bad, and everybody just bands together and just shuts that, like just basically mutes that account or hides it from view. Tell us a little bit about those, so some of those critical kind of levers of the Steemit blockchain, so we can kind of explain what's been going on the past week on Steemit.
Yeah. Okay. So it's important to note the difference between hiding something on Steam and when it gets hidden on, say, YouTube, right? On YouTube, for one thing, it's that centralized authority. It's YouTube, the company, making a decision that your content just doesn't get seen now. Like it just disappears, basically. You can sometimes see it on the back end, and you can't even always see it. But like they just make it disappear. On Steam, if something gets downvoted enough to where it's like it doesn't show up negative, it doesn't take your funds away, but like the value is into the negative, basically, then it just drops down. Like if it's a comment, it'll be the bottom comment on the thread now. It's still there, anybody can read it. It's kind of lightly grayed out to help indicate like this is something people have flagged a bunch. So it's still there, but it does shift where it is. And the same with a post. If you're trying to get a post on trending or something, and there's people decide that it was spam, or it's happening right now with the official Steemit account. They posted a big update when they committed the hostile takeover, and they upvoted it with their funds and stuff, and the community have downvoted it to a $0 post when it was up over $100 at one point, because the entire community is like, no, we're not going to let you pay yourself for telling lies about what you just did.
Yeah, and that's what I've been seeing from that post. So Justin Tron, well, let's back up a little bit. So Justin Tron announced that they had bought the Steemit blockchain, right? Is Steemit like proprietary, like, or is it actual, like, is it MIT code? Is it MIT sort of license?
Yeah, so it's a GitHub. It's fully open source. Steemit Incorporated is the company that launched the code originally. Their developers created it and launched it. And there's the whole thing of the Ninja Mine, where they managed to keep anybody else from mining pretty much for the first month and get a huge stake in the platform. Steemit Incorporated did. But yeah, the purchase that Justin Sun / the Tron Foundation made was specifically they bought Steemit Incorporated, which is, employees, like a normal business, and then Steemit.com and the Steemit logo, and then Steemit's stake on the platform, because Steemit holds currently around 20% of the Steem on the platform.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the license here on GitHub, and I'll put that link on the comments on YouTube. So copyright 2019 Steemit Inc. and contributors valid license applies to code contained within the repository as created by Steem Inc. Other copyright holders have license dependencies such as Graphene, FC, and Boost under their own individual licenses. And then it says MIT license. Permission is hereby granted free of charge to any person obtaining a copy of the software. And then there's the MIT license. So it looks like, yeah, there's some elements that are kind of like copyrighted by Steemit Inc., and then other ones that are MIT license. So that's what you would expect, right? So the backend, the sort of public blockchain side of things is open source, but then the website, which is steemit.com,
right? And
then some of the other things you mentioned, those are proprietary. So that's what Justin Sun Tron actually bought. And yeah, and they had a really big stake, like a founder share, like just a lion's share, a treasure trove of founder share that they could vote on. And so now that's Tron's, right?
Yeah. Luckily, it didn't happen, 4 years ago when they held 70% of the market. Now that their
Jeez.
market share is down to 20,
Mm.
but it was still a concern. That was the thing. So one of, delegated proof of stake is basically, a democracy in action, which obviously neither of us are fans of democracy,
It's
but
a capitalist democracy. It's like
well, it's a fully voluntary democracy. It's a
Sure.
voluntary, nonviolent democracy.
Yeah.
So everybody gets to vote on witnesses, right? That's our block producers. And the top 20 witnesses are what's called the consensus witnesses. And you need, I want to say it's 17 out of the 20 to have consensus on something. So with this 20% stake that Steem now had, or Steem it has, that Tron now had, that if you just looked at it, that's 20%, that wouldn't necessarily be able to take over the witnesses. But there's a couple elements that are screwy. One is many accounts on the platform, on the blockchain, are dead, decrepit, unused. People lost the keys, or they just don't bother to log in, or whatever. And a lot of people that are active still never voted for witnesses before. So even though they only had 20% of the total market, they had over 70% of the vote. If they were to vote, their weight would be more than everyone else combined times 2. So they could have replaced the top 20 witnesses instantly and taken over the network. So the consensus witnesses at the time, after a couple of days of long conversation with a bunch of the biggest stakeholders, a bunch of the people who have built the dApps, like all the big head, like the community came together. More than 100 people were involved in this conversation, but 19 out of the 20 consensus witnesses agreed. There was one who Tim Cliff posted why he didn't and what his other option was, and he started running a different soft fork from theirs. But basically, they soft forked they didn't change the rules. They didn't add any new switches, but they just switched something to on that had been turned off before. They made it so that those Steemit accounts couldn't vote for witnesses or delegate their stake or proxy or anything. They locked it into effectively the agreement that Steemit Incorporated through Ned and Dan had with the community for 4 years. They said multiple times, it was published, multiple times, that this was for creating new accounts, this was for faucets for new users, this was for funding third-party development projects. Like, it was only to build the blockchain, and it would not be used for voting for witnesses, and it never had until this point. It was not used for voting for witnesses. So the witnesses and the community basically said, well, Justin Sun's come in, he hasn't told us what he's doing, he hasn't made any agreements with us, he's talking about all sorts of crazy stuff, swapping our coin over to the Tron blockchain, and talking about all sorts of stuff that doesn't make any sense, and he won't answer our questions. So we're going to change the code so that those funds can only behave in the way that it was agreed they would behave anyways. Now we're going to change it to a trustless deal because we don't trust you like we trusted them.
Got it. Now, this conversation that was had, this 100 people that were talking about that had reached a level of consensus to say, okay, we're going to soft fork Steemit and block Steemit Inc.'s shares. Were you at those conversations?
No, I wasn't well, yes and no, because there was different levels of it, the different layers. There were multiple fully public town halls that happened through Discord on the PalNet servers. Agrode is one of the top witnesses, and he runs the PalNet servers. They have radio shows going live all the time and stuff, and they already do witness town halls like weekly. So a bunch of the top witnesses, like not just top 20, but like top 50, and then hundreds of other people go through those town halls. And then a lot of the people that are in there are people like myself, who also then I'm running, Discord server for my 60-ish person community that I help organize and hang out with. So I'm talking to all of them and bringing that feedback into the community. So I wasn't in like the room when they made the agreement of what the code was going to say and all. I wasn't one of those, where it was like 40 witnesses and like 10 or 20 big stakeholders. but I was in the conversations leading up to it, and we all knew it was going to happen. Basically, it was just a matter of how and when, because if we didn't take action beforehand, then when they did something, it would have to result in a hard fork. You know, like doing the soft fork until we could make an agreement on what was going to happen moving forward was kind of the harm reduction way of doing it. And they released a full statement written by all the witnesses saying, like, this is a temporary feature, we can turn it off immediately. It's not a consensus hard fork. The exchanges and dApps and stuff don't have to change. You know, this is not an actual hard fork, and we can reverse it immediately, and we will as soon as we know what your actual intentions are and whether or not you plan to, you know, abide by the same contract that we've had with Steem and Inc. for the last 4 years.
How many people do you think are actually actively, even at a, you know, in a market like this where everything is kind of, you know, under a certain down pressure, so to speak, how many people do you think are actually actively engaged in Steemit?
Probably more right now than at any point in years. And if you look at the market, Steem's one of the only coins that's up. It's up like 6% today.
Yeah, of course. You know, any news is good news, clearly, right?
No,
yeah. The other thing is like the supply of Steem on the exchanges is actually technically locked up because it had to be vested in order to be voted on. And so what's that, 13 weeks? You said it's locked up for 13 weeks?
Yeah. So I guess let's continue the story.
Please go on.
The whole picture, and then
I just want to mention, like, it's really interesting just to kind of like zoom out a little bit how much of a society this is, right? And one of the things that has really struck me over the years is that money is basically the membrane of civilization. You know, all countries have their own currency today, right? And gold, in a sense, back in the day was like a uniter of greater marketplace and greater society. And Steemit, in that sense, is a micro society. And the fact that you guys are doing town halls and, you know, you're representing your sort of your people, and then it's almost like a very organic sort of consensus structure, like very social.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. I feel like Steem is the closest thing to a rainbow gathering that we have in the crypto sphere. You know, but anyway, that's a whole
that's a whole other story.
About that for an hour or two. So Tron buys Steemit. I forgot to mention they did an AMA. They called it an AMA. You know, Justin Sun and Ned Scott, the former head of Steemit Incorporated. I watched the whole thing. Over the course of 52 minutes, they answered 6 questions, all of which were very much softball questions, and it was basically just an infomercial. So that was when the community really started to get worried, because it's like, well, now it's not just marketing stuff, but it's like their AMA was still them telling us nothing. A couple days later, soft fork goes into effect. The next day, Justin Sun and Tron announced that they're going to have an open meeting with the top 50 witnesses to you know, connect with the community and make sure we're all on the same page and stuff. And they schedule it for March 6th. So it still hasn't happened. I and many other people are pretty sure that, or at least my thought is that they probably scheduled that meeting as a way to buy time so that they could pull off what they just did. Night before last, again, it was probably the middle of the day in China, but night before last, they make a deal. Nobody knows the details, obviously, but Justin Sun, through communications with Huobi, Poloniex, which is owned by the Tron Foundation, and Binance, you know, so 3 Chinese exchanges.
Wait, hang on. Poloniex is owned by by who?
Tron.
Poloniex is owned by Tron, by the Tron Foundation,
or maybe by Justin. It's very much in that same thing.
I did hear that they sold it. They used to be owned by like Circle, and then they got resold recently, right?
Yeah, they own DLive. They own, you know, BitTorrent, like the website BitTorrent, the company that makes the is it the Views, one of the top.
It's one of the top live streaming. Yeah, it's like a competitor.
Yeah, they're huge. Tron is
like PewDiePie live streams on it. You know, wow.
So these 3 exchanges all take all those custodial Steem that people have on them, which it equaled up to over 40 million. I want to say it was close to 50 million Steem. Maybe it was more. I'm writing an article right now with all the numbers because it all changes as it's moving too. But they power up this massive amount of Steem, like basically enough to, again, replace the witnesses with the ones you want to vote for. and they power up all the Steam, which is vesting it in the platform. It now requires 13 equal weekly payments to pull out. So anyone with Steam on any of those 3 exchanges, they turned off the withdrawal request option, and it's now going to take as long as 3 months for that Steam to. You could have a run on these exchanges. Like they literally don't have the Steam to give people back now, and so they take over the top 20 witness slots. They have 20 brand new accounts that were just created. A couple of them have Justin in the name. One of them's called like Nice Try 001. Like they're just total fake accounts, sock puppet accounts, no information, nothing to them. They become the top 20 witnesses, bumping the 20 that we had down to like 21 through 40. And then a couple hours after that, they released this open letter to the community that they've made hard fork 22.5. I don't know if they like tried 3 and 4 and just scratched them along the way because they didn't work or what. They just jumped some numbers. I think they don't really understand how sequencing works, but they go to hard fork 22.5, which it basically just undoes. It doesn't undo. That's the thing, is they didn't do it the way that you would if you were trying to be efficient and like build something. They didn't turn off what had just been done with the previous soft fork. They wrote in a bunch of extra code to undo the things that soft fork was doing, which actually caused problems for them on their side with Steemit and stuff because they screwed up the code along the way. And so then Steemit Incorporated's accounts are now also voting for witnesses. So it put their 20 witnesses each at like 3 times the amount of Steam power voting for them as any of the actual community's witnesses. They just completely took over.
Fascinating. So this guy is basically like, this is a consolidation power move, right?
Yeah.
Like he's doing what is the same principle of what a great invader would have been doing in the past, right? He goes to a small tribe, takes it over, right, and then integrates it, and then goes to the next guy, takes it over, and integrates, and he's just building this kind of empire of crypto IP and technology and teams and stuff. I mean, you got to give it to him. I've always been impressed with his political prowess, so to speak, right? He's definitely a kind of political leader as far as much as you can get it in crypto, but he's also a joke at the same time, because it's just like, it's amazing. I've never really, I
was just gonna say the video floating around of him where he's like, buy my shit coin,
buy my shit coin.
Yeah.
That's great.
So the Steam community, so I woke up yesterday morning and the announcement, like the hard fork was like 5 hours old, right? I woke up yesterday morning and the community had already been going in another town hall, which we got so big that Discord was glitching out and having issues with it. There were over 300 people in the town hall. For about 7 hours it ran. So you figure probably at least 1,000 over the course of that time, with people coming in and leaving for half an hour, an hour, or whatever. And I was there the whole time. And over that whole time, the big push was, get on the social media, especially Twitter being the one that so much of the crypto world uses, and blow these guys up. And it happened. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of tweets, and everybody retweeting them and liking them, and just so before yesterday, like as of last night, Binance had already undone all of it. They had withdrawn their votes, taken away the proxy. And released an announcement, like, our bad. We thought it was just another hard fork rubber stamp that we were rolling with. We didn't realize what was happening. But then today, Justin Sun, or last night again, Justin Sun, then right after that released his like 9-tweet storm where he called the community's consensus witnesses malicious hackers trying to steal his funds, and talked about how they had to take action to control the chain to stop these malicious hackers who were trying to stop him from controlling the chain. And I haven't seen anything from Poloniex. I don't know if I'm not actually on Twitter. I'm just like looking at it. I don't use it personally. But I saw he had retweeted somebody who runs Huobi making a comment supporting them. Like, we're in support of Tron, protecting against these malicious hackers.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I'm looking for this tweets by, I think it was CC Binance that actually tweeted them. He seems to be engaging on the topic on Twitter. But that's incredible. So Binance is backing out. They already backed out of the vote. They did the vote.
They backed out last night.
Okay.
And made an apology.
Okay. Yeah.
The other two have not.
Okay, so they still have Polonix and Wushtia?
Yeah.
Huobi,
Polonix
right?
and Huobi, yeah.
Yeah,
But now
yeah.
the community's been pushing it so hard, and we all put aside our differences because we had, people voting for 100 different witnesses.
Right.
Now everyone's consolidated, and we're all voting for our real top 20.
Right.
And we've already got 3 into the top 20 now. We've displaced 3 of theirs. We only need 1 more to be able to block consensus completely.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Let's go back to that point of the vesting and the coins inside of the exchanges, right? So just to reiterate, there's all these coins by users that are owned by the users in theory, right? In these exchanges, but then Binance through kind of back channel rubber stamping appears to have vested them and voted on a soft fork, and now they're backing out. If they don't do that, that money is literally locked up. It can't be moved. Those teammates that have invested cannot be moved unless there's some sort of hard fork around it, which means that these exchanges have a positive obligation. They have a debt to Steem holders in their exchanges of Steem that they can't move.
Yeah.
So that money can't, because it can't be moved, you can sell it on the exchange, right? Like I don't know exactly how that could play out, but it's really interesting because you can withdraw, right?
Right. You can buy and sell, and I'm sure you can deposit, but they've just turned off the withdrawal option. They say the maintenance, the wallet is under maintenance.
Maintenance, right? Yeah, it's maintenance. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the things that Justin Sun had promised them. Their announcement said that they were going to put in a hard fork, getting rid of the power down completely and making it a 1-day power down.
Fucking crucial fundamental consensus change to Steema here.
Yeah.
From 13 weeks power down, right? Which is when you get the Steem out of the vesting sort of state.
Yep. Yeah.
To 3 days, 1 to 3 days.
1 day. They were going to go to 1 day.
Oh my God.
Because he probably promised the exchanges they would be able to pull it right back off again.
Yeah, that must have been what he promised. Yeah. So, I mean, this looks like it's headed towards a kind of hard fork or a sort of fork of the communities, right?
Which is going to be great.
Yeah, I think it would be probably very good for Steemit because, let's just not forget to mention, like, Ned Stark and Steemit Inc. have to be basically complicit in this whole scenario, right? It's not like they're being held at gunpoint. They had control over everything. They have legal ownership over all the things that Justin is sort of dangling around.
Right.
What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, as of a couple hours ago, so far, 4 of the core team from Steema Incorporated have resigned. 3 blockchain devs and their head of communications.
Wow.
So that's where that's at. I think Ned is probably. It seems like he did not explain to Justin what he was buying. He told Justin he was buying a blockchain. It sounds like, and not that he was buying a 20% stake in a blockchain.
Right.
My guess would be Justin's going to end up going after him when he realizes that he's totally screwed on this deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in terms, other than that, I forget her title, but Eli Powell, who's like basically the head. I think she. Maybe not the CEO, but like Ned had kind of stepped out to the side a bit, and she had stepped in as the head of Steema Incorporated. She released a statement saying like she's fully on board with Tron and what they're about, but all the people, she was brand new, obviously, and Ned never gave a shit about this place.
Classic, yeah.
But all the people who work for Steema, like most of them have been here since the beginning and are part of the community and have, been part of the community. So it's great to see that they're quitting. And
that seems to be the classic move, right? You replace leaders, put in somebody else that's new, that doesn't have connections to the community, that maybe is a little bit more corporate and hardcore. Where have you seen that before?
Right.
And then they just start playing corporate ball because that's what they know and that's what they do and that's where the business is, right? And they let go of community values. They don't have a context or history. It's not even like they could if they like. It's not like. I'm not sure they're even capable of really understanding, how long does it take to be as hardcore that you show up to multiple town halls and Steemit to really make a decision like this. It takes a while to build up that kind of relationship. So
yeah, definitely.
I mean, maybe possible. I don't know, but
yeah. So what we're looking at now is hard fork, right? So as soon as they announced their hard fork, many, not all by any means, but many of the dApps and services and front ends all shut down. They're all boycotting the Tron chain. They're like, no, if you're not going to let our witnesses, like if you're going to try to take over our network, then you don't get our stuff. You can have the blockchain, but you can't have my dApp. You can't have that game. You can't have that front end.
Like Splinterlands. Splinterlands is one of the more popular Steam games. I like it. I play it.
It's 20% of the transactions on the chain.
Right.
Splinterlands is 20% of the Steam blockchain, and Agrod he was in every one of the town halls the whole time. He is nice.
He's great. I met him in Acapulco. He's an interesting guy.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. He gave me a couple of cards. They're really cool. So one of the things that we gotta mention here is that Steam Inc. owns the domain steemit.com, right?
You're bouncing back and forth. It's Steemit Inc.
Steemit,
right? Steemit Inc. owns steemit.com.
Got it.
Then they just have that 20% share of the Steam.
Yeah. Right.
So Steemit.com is the corporation.
Got it. So I think I got it. But like, so Steemit.com, like it's a very valuable resource, right? Like as far as SEO, they have the Google rankings of a major player, right? Like it's a big website. It's got really good Google like Alexa reputation. It's a big asset, right? In the event of a hard fork and not being able to use Steemit.com, which would obviously destroy the value of Steemit.com in a sense, they would have to, like, the community would have to build an alternative sort of portal to the Steam blockchain, because it's not like you can just run your own node. I mean, running a Steam node is like you need a data center, right?
Yeah, there's a couple folks in the community who run full nodes already, but like the two most used full nodes are run by Steemit Incorporated right now. But there's a couple others in the
How many full nodes are there?
I don't know the exact
There's got to be like there can't be more than like a couple hundred, right? Like
no, there's less than that total. There's only a couple hundred witnesses.
Right.
Yeah, and not all the witnesses are running the full.
Right. So there's less than 200 full nodes. This is what the big debate was about, right? Granted, I mean, the Steemit is very oriented towards immutability of content over the long term. It's a sort of kind of like Alexandria, the other crypto project. That's like it's about holding content for a long time, right? Whereas, but that means it's a very big blockchain. So there's less than 200 nodes.
Yeah, and there's already been a couple of folks from the community who have said that they would run nodes if we need them as well. They'll upgrade. And so Steam, as of last year, we launched the Steam proposal system, or the Steam DAO, and we have our own proposal system where projects get funded. So most likely all this stuff, like the community can just fund these things itself. Like somebody's not going to have to go out of pocket. They can make a proposal to launch a full node, and the community can fund it.
Got it.
And that's most likely in the hard fork, all that Steemit stake is probably going to end up in the DAO. Either that or it'll get nulled. It'll just get burnt.
Right. So we're getting Steemit 2.0. Should we be buying it, or we're gonna get an airdrop? This is not even
well, it's hard to say. It depends on when the timestamp is for the hard fork, right? Because if it hasn't happened yet, if it's in a couple days because we managed to take back over and stop their consensus, then buying now is good. But if it already happened, then you're not going to get your 2 coins. If
this is great. So listen, this is the kind of thing that could break an exchange, or maybe at least do some damage, right? So for example, Poloniex and Hobby, right? Before the hard fork happens, they have all this Steemit locked up. I mean, it can't move. But on their private servers, right, on their private order books, the Steemit can still move, right? It can be traded, right? And so if you, let's say, go buy a bunch of Steem, right? I don't know how it's going to play out. See, when the Bitcoin Cash fork happened, the blocks were so sparse, there was so much distance between blocks that deposits were very slow to come in. And if you don't have deposits to dump on the price, then the price is going to tend upwards, right? And so you had this spike that went up to half a Bitcoin. I think it got to like almost half a Bitcoin worth of BCH, right? Like the price was almost half a Bitcoin. But that was a lack of liquidity. That wasn't like hardcore demand on a liquid market. That was shortened liquidity and demand, significant demand. And so once the liquidity started to come, then the price dropped, and then it never came back anywhere near those heights. But with this, is kind of like the opposite. It's like you can't withdraw the money. I think it's going to be very interesting. They have to hard fork. They have to change that because if people try to withdraw the Steemit, then the exchange is going to have, if the exchange can't actually deliver the actual Steemit that are owned by the users, they're going to have to buy it in the market and sell other Steemit. So they're going to have to sell, let's say, Bitcoin. That's probably like their clients, unless they have like a SAFU fund. They're going to have to buy Steemit and then deliver it to their clients. Which is going to just mess with their sort of accounting books, right? And they're going to have this sort of, and then on top of that, the price is going to go down, right? So the price of Steemit, it might go down, like, especially like this sort of Steemit Inc. fork, right? It's going to go down, whereas the value of something like, it could really screw the accounting of an exchange, which is really fascinating. And I guess we'll see if these exchanges, stay with this decision. It really echoes the Bitcoin Cash fork, which was sort of a kind of corporate consensus, right?
Right.
Versus a sort of grassroots consensus.
Yeah. Well, and it just is such a strong reminder of, crypto rule number one. If they're not your keys, it's not your crypto.
That's right.
If it's in an account instead of a wallet, then all you have is IOUs.
All you have is IOUs. Yeah. The power's in the hands of the owners. Yeah.
And then if you're dealing with any sort of blockchain where there's a DAO with voting, or where there's DPoS, or if that crypto has voting of some kind, then we've now seen that at least these three exchanges will use it.
That's fascinating. So, excuse me. What is what do you see happening next? What else should we expect going forward?
Oh, it's hard to say. It looks like we're gonna get at least, like, we literally only need one more to get into the top 20 to be able to block their consensus. And the Marky Mark, one of our witnesses, is at like 21 right now. So most likely we'll be able to block their hard fork, so they can't. And then most likely it'll just be a fork. They'll most likely get the Steem name because he has connections with all these exchanges and stuff, and we don't.
Right.
Like, he's got the Tron Foundation behind him. They'll most likely get the Steem name, but we'll see. And then we'll get whatever the hell we decide as a community to call it. Right. Steem Classic or Steem 3.0 or, the good Steem or whatever.
Vapor.
And, right. So, and personally, I'm like, this is great, because that means as soon as the fork happens, I'll be able to just keep all of my stake in the platform I've actually been using, in the blockchain I've actually been using with the community and all of that. And then whatever's on the Tron version, I'll just sell all of it, and they're just paying me. And then I'm going to delete all my content off their blockchain as well. I'm going to go, you can't delete the original post, but you can make it so that when someone goes to the URLs, they don't see it anymore. They'd have to actually search the blockchain for that block. Right. Yeah. Or that transaction.
Yeah. So all this SEO value that they have on Steemit Inc. is contingent on all the community that they've built up over the past years. All the writers that are not necessarily going to be whales. They're not necessarily going to be operating exchanges. No, they're the people that actually build the value into this website. Those people can just, I guess, delete the value from the website or exit, right? This is really, really bad. Like, I don't think Justin Tron thought this one through. Like, okay, he's a power player, but like, he needed to build like long-term grassroots support for this to actually work. Instead, he's just, coming in like a baller.
Yeah, and, it's going to be a $30 million misplay.
Oh yeah.
He's
Well, I think that would be probably like the biggest retaliation that Steemit could do to Tron and Justin Sun, is just make whatever they are left with useless, right? Don't call this Steem. Withdraw whatever they can from the website, right?
Yeah.
Now, this may not be the best path, but it is a possibility. Is there any path to a kind of peace between Tron and Steemit at this point?
I mean, that was definitely what we were what many of the voices were hoping for yesterday in the town hall. But that was before the Twitter storm last night, where he referred to our consensus as malicious hackers and said that it was illegal and said that what he was doing, At that point, it was on the fence. We were like, okay, well, we did do the soft fork first, so the hard fork was his way of like, it was his answer. It was like, okay, we're like on, we threw our weight around, you threw yours around, but then to take that extra step and go from let's have a conversation about it to playing politics and trying to get the media marketing machine to demonize the defense of our blockchain.
Yeah, and the legal threats, right? It's not like it's not just immoral, it's illegal, right?
Right.
So obviously, Tron and Justin Sun, if you're listening to this, which I have my doubts that you are, but if you are, you need to step it back a notch or two. You gotta step back the legal threats, and you gotta spend a few months building consensus and negotiating with the actual community leaders and the people that have actually built the value into Steemit. Because otherwise, you're gonna end up with an empty shell at steemit.com, and then someone else is just gonna grow a new property that's going to be what you wish you had.
We've already got that. Busy.org was launched like 6 months after Steemit.
That's right.
It's I don't prefer it myself. I use what's called Steam Peak, just STEEMPEAK.com. It's by far the best front end for the blockchain. I think it has all those things we used to have to go to other sites for, like the back end stuff, to do delegations, to do witness, like all that stuff rolled into one. Way better user interface and user experience than Steemit has ever provided. They basically designed the whole community's functionality that just launched last week into what it is with the cross posting and stuff. Like Steam Peak is far and away better than Steemit.com ever was. The only thing Steemit.com had was, it's 2 years older. It was the original.
They never really upgraded. They were really terrible kings, very lazy kings.
Yeah, very very lazy.
Really lazy kings. They didn't do anything. At least they didn't burn it to the ground, but they really didn't add much functionality. So my critique of Steemit has always been that it doesn't really have a good investment proposal. Like, it's a very questionable investment proposal. And the Steemit that gets locked up into stake, that shortens the supply, that's one of the things that holds up the price. But then it's also paying out liquid Steem to writers on a regular basis. So it seems to me it's more likely to trend down than to trend upwards. Is there any new ideas or infrastructure or economic sort of stability concepts in the community now about how to make Steem more sustainable?
I think removing the giant imbalance in stake that's been there since the beginning alone is going to be a big thing. Besides that, there's so many communities just launched after 3 years of being talked about. Now we have like the full functionality of subreddits or Facebook groups. Like, we have that on chain now, and you can link Discord channels to a community. Like, in the Steam Peak interface, you can link a Discord channel to that community. So you can
have private Facebook groups, like private Steam group.
Well, right now it's not private. Truly, it's private in the sense that it doesn't go up on your blog wall and it doesn't go to people's feeds, but it's not encrypted and everything on the blockchain.
That would be interesting if they did something
which
like
you could. You could make your own front end that is putting things on the blockchain and just encrypting them before putting them. Just have the encryption at the front end level, and you could totally use Steem as your private database.
Yeah, that's interesting, because they have a massive sort of database of user accounts, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of useful. People want to log back in and stuff.
User accounts, and we've just it's so many times shown that it can handle more transactions than Visa, MasterCard, American Express do. Like, we've hit millions and millions in a day many times. More than 10,000 a second kind of thing. There's a whole push for the launch of SMTs. Who knows what'll happen with that, because that was something Steemit Incorporated was developing.
Right,
but we already have for 4 years now. It's been about to drop. But we do have what's called Steem Engine, which was built by Agrode actually and some other folks, and it's so you can build tokens on Steem as well. So you can have you can have WAN tokens, you can have fungible, non-fungible.
Coming soon.
Exactly.
There's only going to be one.
So there's that whole side too, where people can use it as like a simpler, because the code is. Writing for Steem is much easier than writing for Ethereum or something too. It uses like language that coders already use. You don't have to learn anything new necessarily. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think that the only downside here, I mean, you get a lot of really interesting functionality, especially around content creation. But the downside is this, because it's much more sort of centralized, you get this political games, right? So people really have to be engaged. They want to try and defend the assets. But I mean, I'm excited to see what happens from this, because Steam had a huge potential. Like, you know, it's always been interesting, and I've always had like this. There's been fun economic critiques of Steam from the beginning, but like the amount of traction that it grabbed, like it was huge on in South Korea, right? Like
it
I know
still
people
is.
that made big money on it. It was bleeding money hard, right? Like again, like there's famous cases of Berwick just being like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Jeff Berwick. Boom, $15,000, right?"
Right.
And there's a lot of those, right? So that those big stake getting those big sort of voting blocks getting diluted is good.
Yeah. Which has been happening over time anyways. It's systematic.
Yeah.
You know, if
yeah.
you can't hold your same relative stake unless you're interacting with all the different parts of the blockchain, because the inflation is distributed so widely. Inflation goes to the DAO, inflation, 10% to the DAO, 10% to the witnesses, then it goes to the curators, everyone who's voting, and then it goes to everyone who's creating content. So it's like, and everyone who's just holding Steam as well. There's just the interest basically.
Yeah,
so unless you're doing all of those activities, you can't just buy 10% of the market and then sit on it and hold 10% of the market forever.
You can't do that, because it's going to start, because the inflation is going to start eating away at it.
Exactly. And everyone else,
Right.
if there's so many people that are not starting with money or starting with a little bit and then creating content and getting value out of that, and then they're creating content and they're a witness and they're voting, so they're getting curation rewards or so yeah, it requires activity to be able to keep up with the blockchain itself.
It's probably the best thing that Dan Lerner has ever created.
I think so. I mean, EOS is basically the same thing. It's the same baseline tech,
it's the same structure,
just for smart contracts instead of HTML and JSON.
Yeah. But as far as I can tell, they haven't done anything, right?
Yeah, I can't understand anything that's going on over there myself.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
Let's not even talk about it.
Anyway, so that actually another thing I think that's really undervalued maybe in Steam is name-based accounts, multi-use accounts. You create one Galt or one S Galt, and you can give that to people. You can remember that. Somebody can just write it down. It's not a string of characters that they're never going to remember and they have to take a picture of or something.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Name-based accounts, 3-second block times, and no transaction fees. So in terms of actual quick and easy moving between each other money, it's one of the best there is. It's fast, it's free, and it's easier to tell somebody where to send it.
Yeah, the problem is their token is terrible devaluation. it's like being in Argentina.
Yeah,
I
think that's going to change. I think it's going to change just with the shift. The forking that's going to happen, or whatever the shift is. I think maybe the dollar value will drop for a little while, but overall everything about it will be better. I think
it'd be really interesting if they could integrate Bitcoin as a currency into it. But I mean, Bitcoin's not really currency player yet. But that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's block trades. You can do our
block trades.
Hot swap exchange, so you can get between cryptos. Actually no. There's a Steam token on the Steam engine that is pegged Bitcoin.
Right, that's what I mean. Like a Bitcoin peg and stuff.
Yeah, there's a Bitcoin peg. There's also one that's called the silver penny that is pegged to the actual price of silver, and you can exchange it for the old pre-1964 quarters.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. But that's like hidden. Like you gotta have like a special web front for that, to be able to move that around.
No, it's just part of Steam engine, so it shows up it's just part of your blockchain wallet, basically.
Okay. Yeah, these pegs are a little tricky because they usually require like a third-party kind of escrow or some sort of like it's not exactly decentralized pegs. If they were, that would be interesting, right? Like if it was a trustless, like no trusted third party sort of peg. But nonetheless, I think
which is hard to do.
I think if Bitcoin is going to be the internet of money, right? Like for people that believe that, and I believe that, it has a really good chance of that. If Bitcoin is going to be the internet of money, then it needs to be integrated as currency in sort of social ecosystems like Steemit, like other social networks, there's this really weird, and I will just end with this. Like, there's this really, really weird tension in society right now between social networks as kind of digital societies, digital civil cities or towns, and their status as corporations with proprietary, with ownership by a particular few, and the stock and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And that tension is like, it's like as if you were in, like there's a king that owns the town and you just happen to be there, right? And that tension is directly in contrast to constitutional democracy and individual liberties and such, right? So such that the things that social network owners can do to individual accounts on these platforms would be considered like genocide, or great, like, crimes against humanity if they did it to people in real life. And granted, we're talking about a much smaller scale, but it's not entirely different. There is certain elements, right? Like, who are you if not, what you portray to the world and people's ability to connect with you and discuss, and the reputation that you build in a network, and then you get deleted, and then suddenly it's like you've been imprisoned in a sense. You've been ousted from society. So these things are, in my mind, they're cities, they're towns,
Yeah.
And integrating currency into them is going to be a part of the future, I think. Any last thoughts?
No, yeah, I think that's a great point. That the balance between social media as just a manifestation of social humans versus social media as companies is a big, and that's why Steam has been basically my only social media for years, because even with when Steam was holding a huge stake, it was still, the trend line was it was going to be more and more decentralized over time, even without any big hard forks. And I was able to start with no stake in the platform, just put in content and interaction and build up stake in the platform. So I'm excited to see what else. I've kind of been in that state of like, well, it's good, and I also don't know if it's going to last. We'll see what beats it. But so far, there hasn't really been any other social medias that have been better. To my mind, there's others that like compete in different ways, but there isn't one that like blows it out of the water or anything.
I haven't really seen any crypto social media thing that's really kind of done what Steam has done.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to further developments. Thanks, Kenny.
Yeah,
you said you're going to post a big article on Steemit with like trying to like tell this story. Where can people find you? Find out.
Yeah, so my blog is at steampeak.com or any of the other front ends /@Kenny's Kitchen. And yeah, I'll be putting that up this evening, called Crypto Lessons We Can All Learn from the Steam Hostile Takeover. But yeah, just kind of, I'm going to lay out, the timeline and just hyperlinking lots of words. Make it simple, but with all the context right there for you.
Got it. Yeah, source it and all. Yeah. That's great. Well, we'll put the link below on social media and stuff. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's great talking to you, Juan.
Yeah, it was great.